My name is Gayatri. I'm a senior disciple of Shri, and so I teach a lot in the Harmony Centres, the Shanti Mission Harmony Centres, which is how I come to be here. This is my partner Arjuna, who is also a senior disciple, and we thought that it would just be fitting to teach an Empowering Relationships workshop together, so that you can, suss it out, like, is she telling porkies, or does it really work? So he's here as proof, but he's also a very powerful being. So we're going to be doing some meditating today to clear up our relationships and any baggage that we've got in them. And he's going to be helping a lot to help shift the energy and create kind of more up energy in our relationships to free us from the old. And next in the line, we have the beautiful Vidya, who often accompanies me at Satsang in Sydney, at Sydney Harmony Centre. And he plays mighty fine music, so we'll be having some music as well because I like it and he likes it, and we find that when you're working with energy, one of the easiest things to do is to use music, particularly for the Western mind. We're not really people who are designed to walk into a room, sit down and just have our minds go blank and go into bliss. Has anyone ever done that successfully? Just put your hand up if you have. Right, there's some total of none. So it's helpful for Westerners to have a bit of talking, a bit of brain activity in the right direction, because we did get brains for a reason, and so it just seems like a great idea to use them for the forces of good rather than the forces of evil. And often when the mind is left to its own devices, astral gravity comes into effect, and what astral gravity is when we lift our vibration. Has anyone ever tried to instigate a new affirmation in their lives? And so they go, I'm so abundant, my life is beautiful, I'm so abundant, my life is beautiful. And then 3 days later you're thinking, I've got to pay the tax and I don't know how I'm going to do it. Like that. Has anyone had that? Yeah, that's astral gravity. So what that is the amount of effort that it takes to lift your mind up there. And so I find that chanting really cuts through astral gravity and helps our heads to go into bliss. And it lets go of the weight of all of those things that we could be thinking about other than the bliss. And then we're able to soar into the true potential of the human mind, which is as a creator. And so today we're going to look at how to create better relationships for ourselves. So we thought that what we would do is just briefly explain the paradigm through which we look at relationships at Shanti Mission, which looks a little bit like this, but we'll get to that in a minute. And then we will have a sing and a meditate and have some interactive stuff as well. So later I might ask for a volunteer to come up on stage, and I just would like to warn you now that when I ask for a volunteer, don't volunteer unless you're happy to just have your relationship, the relationship that you choose to work on, scanned in front of these closest mates of yours. Okay? Because yes, that's just the parameters of the volunteering. So on that note, would you like to just take a moment to go within and think about a relationship in your life that you might want to look at? So just think about a relationship that might be troubling you, or a relationship that has troubled you in the past that you're not quite worked through yet. Because relationships aren't all physical. They're not all just communication and just in the physical body. But they also have energy. So sometimes the energy of a relationship can exist well after the relationship itself ends. And in that case, it's good to still resolve that, even though you don't interact with that person anymore, because otherwise it's pulling your energy. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so you end up with your energy in the past when it could be in the present, helping you use your mind, as we said before, as a creative tool. So has everyone kind of got a relationship that they'd like to have a look at? Yes? Very good. Okay.
So a question.
Yeah, sure.
Does this include relationships with yourself or just other people?
Yeah, that's fine as well. We might, I guess, when I was designing this kind of little workshop, I was thinking about relationships with other people, But what I find is that you're not really going to leave the room without looking a little bit at yourself anyway. So it's kind of the self-relationship is definitely included, and it's kind of rolled up in the relationship with the other person. Yeah, but if you'd like to work with yourself, then that's okay as well. You might notice as we start to explain some things that you, faces just jump into your head of, oh my gosh, that happened in this relationship. Oh my god, she's talking about me. Oh my god. Because that's what I did when Shakti Durga explained this paradigm to me. I kind of go, of course. This makes so much sense about all these different relationships that I have experienced. So, this is the paradigm through which we look at pretty much all things in Shanti Mission. So, if you ever do any workshops with the Harmony Centre, you'll be seeing this a lot, because we find that it's a diagram and a model that seems to just grow and bend so that it doesn't matter what you're talking about, it still kind of relates back to this model. So this is kind of this triangle-y thing. I call it Toblerone, and I will explain further about why it's Toblerone in a minute. It's like a little piece of Toblerone. Because it continues, and if you can imagine that it just continues like this, and there's another person there on this other V. But, so not only do people have a V, but also relationships have a V. And also, if you look at the energy body of a business, it would have a V as well. So it's not just about people, it can be anything with an energy body is likely to have this as well. So the first part is the part that most people are quite familiar with, and that's the physical part. So these are 5 dimensions. So the physical dimension, what's in the physical dimension, just off the cuff? Your body. Very good. Exactly what I was looking for. And chairs and tables and stuff. So the other thing that's in the physical about relationships specifically is our communication is in the physical. I might just write these things up on the other side. So communication. Can you see this pen?
Yes.
Yeah. Very good. You're a little bit tired after a really long day of kirtan and yoga and meditating in general bliss? Yeah. Okay, so in relationships specifically, communication is in the physical. What else might be in the physical? Physical contact, which is an important part of a lot of different relationships, whether it's mother and child, that nurturing effect of cuddling a child, particularly a baby. They've done studies to suggest that if babies don't get physical contact, they develop a lot more slowly than babies who are cuddled every day. So physical contact, and also, of course, in a romantic relationship, the sexuality of the relationship is partially the physical. Physical contact. Very good. Okay, so your communication styles are in here, and your body language is also part of communication as well. So all of that is sitting in the physical dimension of your relationship. So then we come to the etheric dimension. So the etheric dimension of a human, of a person, just to start simple and then work into relationships, it involves the energy body, basically. So you have in that, you have the chakras and you have the aura. And you also have meridians. So is there anyone in here who hasn't learned about chakras before? Yeah? Okay, cool. So chakras are kind of, I wish at the Harmony Centre we have this beautiful model that's a cone. I just want you to imagine this. Picture this. It's a cone of cardboard with various bits of stuff stuck to it. And so when we're teaching about chakras, we can go, a chakra is this, and this, and this. We get to hold it onto our bodies. But basically what a chakra looks like clairvoyantly is kind of a cone shape that starts small at the point of the chakra and extends outwards like this. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah. Round of applause for video. Thank you. So my Ajna chakra, for example, is between my eyebrows. That's the side view, the front view, the other side view. I'm not going to do backwards because where's the point? But so that's what chakras look like. This would be a very small chakra. It would be an underdeveloped chakra. So I kind of consider the chakras to be kind of like a filing system of all of our thoughts and emotions and beliefs. But the thoughts and emotions and beliefs, they're actually in the astral field. But the etheric is the storehouse. So the astral field is kind of like the files, the actual pieces of paper that you put in your filing system, but the etheric is the actual filing cabinet thing and the folders. Does that make sense? Yeah. So for example, the crown chakra, that's a very small crown chakra up here, is about divine connection. So your connection with God. If you pray a lot, you get quite a big crown chakra. And if you are not praying so much, if you don't believe in God, you're likely to not have a very big crown chakra. And so your lack of belief is probably because you can't feel God. And so you can imagine that in the communication part of a relationship between someone who can feel a lot of God and someone who can't feel any God would look like the person who feels all the God all the time going, but God exists because you can feel him and he's here, and or it or she, the divine presence is palpable. Why don't you believe in God? And the atheist with the closed crown chakra is going, no, you can't feel it. There's nothing there. Can you see how that would change a relationship just in something that simple? Yeah. So also, the base chakra is around money and that sort of thing. And if you'd like to learn more about chakras, we offer 2 seminars by donation, Ignite Your Spirit 1 and Ignite Your Spirit 2. And particularly in Ignite Your Spirit 1, we go really deep. We spend a day really looking at chakras, and often people, even people who have studied chakras before, find that they learn new things, that it kind of, the information fits into their heads in a different way. So if you'd like to learn more about chakras, then you can look at that. So any questions about the etheric field? No? So when you're in a relationship, your etheric fields kind of touch each other a little bit in relationships. So has anyone ever had a situation with a partner where you come home, you've had a fantastic day, everything's going splendidly, everything's gone right for the whole day, you're very happy, you've been doing kirtan with Afro Moses all day, and you get home and your partner's at home and your partner's had a really horrible day and everything's gone wrong and it's just been a total, been nasty. And have you ever kind of gotten home and gone from yeah to like that really quickly? What that is, and sometimes you might notice that it's before you even talk to your partner. Has anyone had that experience where you just walk in the door and suddenly you're like, and you just want to, hit people and be passive aggressive and stuff? And yet that's because your chakras, we've never had that experience, have we? No, never. Not the heat. Definitely not heat. So it's because your chakras touch each other and your chakras can kind of blob into each other. So particularly if you're physically intimate with another person, during intercourse, what happens is that it's an attempt at unity, really. And so you're becoming as much one as possible, and your chakras join in, and so your chakras kind of overlap a little bit, and there's a sharing of energy. So some energy goes from you to your partner, and from your partner to you. And so you've got to kind of watch what your energy of the partner is like, because it will blow into you. And if they've had a crap day and you've had an excellent day, that may also flow into you. Does that make sense? Yeah. And so what you've got to do then is make sure that your partner has etheric hygiene and cleans their chakras. I know that Shakti Durga's written these hilarious books about this subject, and she's got this really funny diagram in Ignite Your Spirit when it's talking about this factor of relationships, where there's this woman doing, kinky new kind of foreplay where she's sweeping his chakras. Oh yeah, baby, just makes me laugh every time. But the other ways to help keep yourself clean is to just cut from your partner as well. And that's just separating your energy from the other person's energy. And it can just keep you from resenting them. Because if you've had a brilliant day and you're feeling sparkly and you come home and you suddenly feel kind of mudded on, does that, that feeling where you just suddenly feel heavy, then it's easy to think, again, you've just ruined my day just by being grumpy. And then it becomes just a morsel of tension that can carry over. So it's better just to cut from that person so that you can continue feeling sparkly and they can have their process, and that you don't have to be attached to them, feeling good all the time for you to have a good relationship with them. They can have processes too, because processes are such an important part of human evolution. So it's important that you can process, but that you can also not drag the other person into process. And even that alone will create a more peaceful relationship. So any questions about the etheric dimension? No? No? I just saw a hand over there, but it was just an eating hand. So we have chakras in here, and a bit of merging of chakras sometimes. The other thing that can happen with this sort of thing is that when you're communicating with someone, whilst I wrote communication in the physical because it's, words out your mouth or, body language, your chakras are also communicating. So, when you say, how does this look? And someone says, oh, you're really nice, like that. And they can be really genuine, and they can be, they can be quite a good liar. And you can still feel like they just told you it was a horrible dress. You know that feeling? It's probably because their chakras are not saying the same thing as your mouth. And so that can create quite a bit of distrust. So, we have quite a good capacity as humans to tell when people are lying to us. And it's because we're more intuitive than we give ourselves credit for. And in everyday interactions, you're listening to people's words and to their chakras. And so if someone's chakras are pushing you away, then you're going to feel a bit rejected, even if they're saying, it's lovely to see you, so glad you're home. But they're going, ew, like that with their chakras. Does that make sense? So it's just another way. And so it's one of the reasons why I find it really important in relationships to be authentic, no matter how much courage that takes you, and to be gently authentic and humbly authentic, and to say, hello, I'm really happy to see you, but I'm actually in a mood where I need a bit of quiet space now. Would you mind just giving me some peace? And then your mouth is not saying something different to your chakras, so they can go, oh, all right, and go and do something else. And then when they come back, you've had the space that you needed, so you've met your needs, and they've had, the space that they've needed to continue in their happy day, and you haven't pushed them with your chakras. You haven't, because it can feel really uncomfortable when someone does that. So that's kind of the etheric. The astral is something that I find quite amazing in relationships. It's quite an amazing thing, in all facets of life, but in relationships, I just think it's particularly fascinating because time is not a construct that exists in the astral field. It only exists in the physical dimension. So, in the physical dimension, it takes a certain amount of time for your body to get from A to B. But the astral field, as I said a minute ago, is comprised of your thoughts and your emotions and your beliefs. So you can kind of have a thought, an emotion, a belief at any time. And it doesn't take you any time, really, to think a thought. It's not like you have to wait for that. It's not like it has to travel somewhere. Do you see what I mean? And so also the same goes with your etheric field. But in the astral field, because your V diagram has been wandering around having relationships with all these other V diagrams, and then it comes to the relationship with your current partner or your current, I was going to say your current father, but that's probably fairly, the person that you're currently interacting with. And so you've already had relationships with your parents, you've had relationships with your cousins and brothers and sisters and all these other people before you meet this particular friend or this particular colleague. And so all of the conflicts that you've had with all of those other people can still be sloshing around in your astral field. Does that make sense? So, for example, in my life, I had a relationship before my relationship with Arjuna where my boyfriend wasn't particularly faithful, and so he had several other girlfriends at the same time, which was not a nice, place to be. And so it gave me an astral thing of men find it hard to stay with one woman because he was my first boyfriend, and I was pretty smitten, and he was, sleeping with other people, and it was quite confronting, and it left a big effect on me. It kind of, often when we have the most emotion around something, it gives us the most blob in our astral field because we think about it more often. You know that thing? Where if something's really hurting you, it goes round and round in your head of, oh, what should I have done differently, and how did I create this, and, all of that stuff. Or, isn't he a bastard, is another one that can happen. I tried to avoid it, but sometimes it slips in. And so poor Arjuna, who's practically, a saint, he he came into my life and was a very loyal and faithful person, but, we'd be sitting in a cafe, And he'd look over there because he'd seen a pigeon, and I'd be like, what are you looking at? Who are you looking at? The poor man, like, how unfair of me. And I knew it was unfair at the time, because luckily I'd studied this, and I could immediately say, I'm so sorry, I know that that's not you, that was, this other thing. And then what I would do, though, is I would go home and I would clean that old thought and that old paradigm of being in a relationship, and also the fear that comes from that. Because, when you get a wound, it's easy to think, oh, well, that's the way the world is, that's the way it happens, is that when you're in this situation, this happens to you. You know what I mean? And so when I cleaned that out, and it took me a while, because often the astral matrix happens in layers, and so, my thought forms about men being unfaithful might have blogged into a friend of mine's thought forms about how men in her life have been unfaithful, and, so you have other people's astral stuff mingling with yours for a start, so you have to clean that up too and get that out. But you also have all of the different ways I've thought about that. So as in, aren't I in pain because of it? Isn't he a pig because of it? There's all these different branches of the tree that came off that. And so I did a lot of forgiveness work, and I did a lot of removing of that thought, and now I feel quite comfortable. And so, even if a stunning, gorgeous woman walks past and her head turns, not that happens, it's okay. It doesn't bother me because I feel loved. And so part of what this was doing was that it was preventing love, because love would come in here and then bounce out again because it was hitting this piece of insecurity. So I couldn't allow love in, I couldn't allow acceptance in. And so when I cleared that, it was much easier for me to go, oh, isn't she a gorgeous woman? And, maybe I'd check her out a little bit too. And then think, and that's okay, because I'm loved and I'm safe in this relationship. And you can also put in new, shiny, healthy thought forms that say, I am loved. And that increases the sense of feeling loved. Does that make sense? So of all of this, I think as far as something to learn in an hour and a half, that's probably the key ingredient. Because it's so quick to change things around. Do you have anything to add at this point?
Yeah, well, I just want to say that we also receive a lot of our thought forms and beliefs from our parents in society.
Yeah.
A lot of times you don't realise that you pick them up. Then when you go into a new relationship, and those old thought forms and beliefs just don't apply very well anymore. Like, for example, I picked up a thought form from my parents that my mum showed respect to my dad by cleaning, and that's just complicated my relationship. Because there's so much more valuable and loving things that Gayatri does for me than cleaning, that it would be worth it in our relationship for her to show respect that way. But that was a really big thought for me to clean up, that I'm respected and loved in our relationship, even if she doesn't get in the house or anything.
Yeah.
And when I did the work on that, I cleaned up my thought forms about that. It didn't bother me anymore that she didn't clean, and I picked up what she needed, and somehow got her cleaner as well.
So all sorts of things can change. I think I might have helped you with releasing that. My cunning plan. Did I see a hand up somewhere? Yes.
You mentioned that you clean up your astral plane and you clear those thoughts and so on. Can you go into that a little bit more about how is that what you're going to do?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I thought that what we should do today is do a meditation where we do that. But I can certainly teach you a technique for that as well. There's actually a really brilliant technique that is called the reflection technique. And you learn it in one of our seminars called Yoga of the Mind, but it's quite easy. So I'll teach you that one as a take-home tool. And about how to clean up thought forms, because really it's not just relationships, but it's something that in a lot of situations you can have thought forms that hold you back from things. Even in society, as an astral matrix thought form, because the astral field is much more kind of blobby into other things than the other parts of the V diagram. And so, for example, has anyone ever heard people say it always rains at Easter?
Yep.
And how often does it rain at Easter?
Every year.
And so it's kind of a bit chicken and egg, really, isn't it? Did the thought come first, or did the rain come first, or did it rain twice, and then suddenly everyone was like, it always rains at Easter, and suddenly Easter's like, rats. No more camping trips at Easter. So there's all of those sorts of things. Also, imagine how this affects politics. if people are always having thoughts about politicians and how dodgy they are and how they can never get anything right and blah 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 blah. So they're there happily trying their best in their V diagram, and they're getting just bombarded by all of these thoughts. It's almost like abuse, really. So how can we expect them to do a good job when we've got this astral being bombarding them? I'm kind of doing a little bit of a tangent here, something that I do frequently. But if you're interested in that sort of thing, in the global ramifications of the astral field, at the Harmony Centre we do a lot of work with that. We do a lot of service meditations where we clean up the astral field, and we think that we've got them on CD about different topics like the health system, politics, the climate, all sorts of things. And they're only $10, and you just take the CD home, and we figure that if we can get many, many people to do the CD and do the work in the astral field, it'll make a difference. It can make quite a big difference. We've had lots of things happen, particularly with the weather in our school. There was a cyclone that was heading for a big city in Queenstown, I think last year or the year before, and Shakti Durga gathered a group of disciples, and we worked on it for about 2 days straight, and we were cleaning the astral field and cleaning the elementals. And what happened was that instead of hitting the big town, the cyclone completely diverted from where it was going to go and just hit kind of foresty areas where no houses were really destroyed, no one was really injured, that sort of thing. So it's quite powerful. So if you're interested in that, that could be done in the Shanti Mission shop, I'm not sure. But it's something to look into because I think we can really make a difference in that way.
And also, the Yoga in the Mind book actually teaches that technique.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, so if you're looking for more info after we learn that, then that would be good. So maybe we could do that now before we move on to the next part as something to do. So Vidya, would you mind giving us some musical accompaniment? Thank you. So if you'd like to try that technique, so just closing your eyes and just thinking of something that you may have said today or thought today that wasn't probably of a very high vibration. Thinking of a fear that may have surfaced today that wasn't of a very high vibration. And imagine that you can kind of perceive it in front of you. And imagine that you can pull in electric violet light from above the head. So it kind of looks a bit like flame, electric violet flame. And it's so electric that it almost looks white with flecks of purple rather than purple with flecks of white. Feel it coming in, and with this type of light, you have to really pull it. You have to really pull it in from above, just pulling it in through the crown chakra. And when you're ready, lift in your dominant hand, and imagine you can point your palm chakra at the thought. So imagine the thought sitting in front of you, or the memory of the thought, and you can just direct this energy, this electric violet light, at the thought through your hand, at the fear, just dissolving, 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 dissolving. Imagine you can rub it out. I learned this technique as a kid, and so my visualization was like using an electric violet eraser to rub out the thought that I thought. But the colour electric violet has a lot of cleansing properties. Good. So just do that until you feel a little bit lighter about that thought. Good, and then just take a deep breath in through the crown and go, ah. That's just my little added extra. It's not, don't always have to do that. So for those of you who did that, how does that feel? Any volunteers about whether that changed anything with that thought? Yeah.
Feels lighter.
Yeah. So what it is it's a practice rather than a once-office, if you see what I mean. So with spiritual practices, the reason they're called practices is because it's regularity that really makes a difference. So we've got astral fields, and they're there the whole time. So they don't sleep, really, when we're dreaming. Often the astral field is continuing to come into play. And so you can imagine that if you have a really big fear of something, and every time you've seen a fluffy bunny rabbit, you've felt fear. Why that is I'm sure. But if you've felt fear at a certain stimulus, every time you see the stimulus, it builds up and builds up and builds up in the astral field until it's huge. And so just by doing 1 2-minute exercise of electric violet, you'll lighten the load a little bit, but it probably won't be completely gone. So it's something that in our school we tend to do like once a day or even twice a day sometimes to get rid of that thought. But do you feel a little bit lighter about it? What I find is that the thought, instead of gripping me, feels like it's loosened, you know? It feels like it's not in control, and I don't have to have reactions about that thought. I can observe the thought and then choose within me from my own wisdom, rather than my fear, what action to take. Does that make sense? Yeah. So you can also have patterns of behaviour that are quite reactionary. That when you do cleaning work like this, you can learn how to just subvert that reaction into an action that brings peace rather than deflecting peace. So, for example, if something comes up in an argument and it makes you feel vulnerable, and you just go, right, I'm going to cut you off and make banging noises in the kitchen with the pots and pans until I feel better, you know, that's something that can cause quite a bit more angst in that relationship rather than diminishing the angst. Does that make sense? No one in here would have ever done that though, have you? No. But so what you can do is you can diminish the fear. Often in that situation, it's a fear of being wrong. It's a fear of going back to the person that you've had the conflict with and saying, hey, look, I'm really sorry, that was not very skillful. So in my relationship, I try, and you know, having Arjun sitting here is quite funny, but I try my best to have the conflict, and conflict is a natural thing in relationships. But what I try and do is experience the conflict and express myself in the conflict, but then not go into hiding and not block Arjuna out or anyone who I'm having a conflict out with, but instead to kind of go take a pause and go, ooh, that wasn't very skillful. It's okay, I'm safe, and I love me, even though that wasn't very skillful. And then to reapproach the person and say, hey, look, I'm really sorry, that wasn't very skillful, and I can see how you feel. Like, I can see why you feel that. And the reason that I was reacting in that way is because I'm scared of this. Because often we expect that our astral field, and the reason that we had a strong reaction to something is going to be plainly obvious to someone else. But for them, they haven't had the experiences that we've had. So often we can have this random like, hiya reaction, and they're looking at us like we're Looney Tunes, because, you know, why would that offend you? You know what I mean? Whereas for the other person, it's incredibly offensive because of X, Y, Z things and power games that have been used by other people in their life around that topic. Yeah? Okay, so any questions about the astral field? No? Okay. So, then we move up to the soul dimension. So, in the soul dimension, you have a lot of stuff about karma. Yes?
Can I just ask one question?
Yeah.
If you're rubbing out that negative thought or whatever,
Yeah.
do you replace it? Is it important to replace it
Yeah,
with a positive?
I would often do that. I find that with the positive, I can start, like when I erase, it's much easier to hold on to an affirmation. Because I was talking about the astral gravity before. So often if I try to, like if I know I'm fearful of a certain thing, and I just decide, oh well, I'll put the opposite in its place. So just a random suggestion of something I could be fearful other than white rabbits, because I admit that wasn't a very good one. Does anyone have something that...
Snake.
A snake? A snake, okay. What about something in a relationship? Okay, so
Rejection.
fear of rejection. Thank you very much. That's lovely. Okay, so I could have a raging fear of rejection. And it can be, you know, swirling around in my solar plexus, because that would be the part of the filing cabinet that holds a fear of rejection. And it could be like this. And I could think in my head and affirm, I'm lovable, exactly as I am. I'm lovable, I'm safe. I'm lovable, I'm safe. I'm lovable, I'm safe. But then as soon as something happens in my life, the strongest thing that's been built up over time is this fear of rejection. And so when something happens in my life, it's not I'm safe and loved that's going to pop to the surface the fastest, because it's not the winning thought form. Does that make sense? It's going to be the I'm scared, I'm going to get dumped. That's what's going to come up first, the fear of rejection. You know? And so what I find really helpful is that when you erase the fear of rejection, and you can do more, like if you attend the Path of Ease and Grace workshops, you learn a lot more tools other than the one that I just taught you about how to clean it from specific chakras and how to work with even past lives as well, about how to clear stuff. And then when you try and put in the I'm loved and accepted and approved of, and I'm safe and secure, it's going to stay in there with a lot more ease. So you can just, I'm loved, safe, respected. I'm loved, safe, respected. I kind of do that sort of thing as I'm walking along, you know? And it does make you feel a lot better because it's like you're approving of you as well, and you're not going to reject you, and somehow that makes it a lot safer. And you learn a lot more about that in terms of the inner child and the inner parent relationship. In empowering relationships, there's seminars, there's 2 seminars, so it takes a day to do that, so I won't now, but I hope that helps a little bit, yeah? Any other questions? Okay, so the soul, otherwise known as the higher self, or there are many other names really for the soul, but for me it holds a lot of karma. So has anyone ever had a relationship that you go, it's karmic? Has anyone ever had that? Yeah? And you kind of meet this person and you just go, oh, I hate you. Has anyone had that? Yeah, and so the likelihood is that that person has offended you somehow in another lifetime, because you can have that spontaneous reaction. And you know, I pride myself on being such a loving person and such a compassionate person that you can meet someone and you can just go, oh, I just feel, you know, I feel threatened when they're in the room. And I have no reason to feel threatened. So it's not that I hate them, it's just that I feel threatened when they're in the room. Why is that? Well, maybe in a past life, they were someone in my life who abused me. And so when they're near me, I feel uncomfortable because that's still going on in the bit that's from before. You know what I mean? So that's another way things can hang on. So you can see it gets more and more complex, doesn't it? And the opposite is true as well, that you can really love someone as well, based on past life stuff. You can just, like, you can not have met a person and just be smitten with them. And that happens as well. So in ashram situations, have you ever had the experience, we have it all the time at the Harmony Centre, where people see someone, and we call it a spiritual crush, where it's certainly not a crush as in I want to have a relationship with you, but it's just like, oh my God, I love you so much in such an unconditional way, and I would do anything to serve you to help you reach your highest destiny. Has anyone ever kind of had that experience when you're around spiritual schools and things? Yeah, one person? Give me a roaring yes if you have.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, yeah, so you get all of that within the soul
I
dimension.
think it's like, maybe you mean like you're really drawn to that person.
You're drawn to that
and
person.
You really admire them.
Yeah, maybe I do things in the extreme a little bit. I'm a bit dramatic about my love for people. Several people in this room would know how dramatic I am, a bit of a cuddle monster. Yeah, so when you're really drawn to someone, you don't know why, you've never met them before. That can be a soul thing as well. There can also be soul contracts in relationships. And that is that the soul, its job is not necessarily to come to Earth to have a lovely time. Its job is to come to Earth to evolve. You know what I mean? And so you have things called soul families. And the soul families have known each other for a long time, through lifetimes in fact. And so what happens is before an incarnation, the soul family kind of works out, well, okay, and I'm gonna, do this, and this to you so that you learn this, and this. And the soul says, oh, thank you, that's so kind. And then you get to Earth and you go, when they do those things, that's actually to help your soul's development because you've already asked that person to do that. You know what I mean? And that can be quite baffling for people in healing situations when someone's really hurt them very badly and they realise that that was actually a gift from that person's soul to this person's soul to help them learn compassion or respect or all of those things. So that can be quite an interesting twist to things. But I find that it helps the process of forgiveness quite a lot when you take into account karma and also the fact that nothing happens without a reason. And so really anything that happens in our lives is because our soul has kind of wanting that experience to learn and grow from. Anything else that I've left out about the soul?
Did you want to talk about the attraction, like the positive form of that, the common
Yeah,
soul
sure.
contract? Talk about your story about your negative word.
Tell a story about me, Gayatri. So it's good. Thank you for reminding me. With Aja and I was in. I went to school at an all-girls high school, which was, a teenager in an all-girls high school, walled-in convent, no boys, not happy, really. Not unhappy either, but just kind of wistful. Anyway, being Shakti Durga's daughter, what happened was she, I attended all these seminars with her about how to attract your divine partner into your life, and I thought, well, they're really thick walls, but I'll give it a go. And so I remember one day after taking a similar course like that, I had this really strong urge in my heart to write a list of what I wanted in my divine partner. And so I wrote this list, and as I said, girl, convent, it was a very long list, and it went for about a page and a half, actually, and it was mainly adjectives. And what happened was that I finished school and got out of the convent, and pretty much within about 2 months of finishing school, Ajna moves in to the property next door to my house. Just next door. Like, I didn't even have to go very far. I lived in Kurrambong as well, I have to set the scene, in the middle of the Hunter Valley, where, there's not really that much social life. There's not really much going on in Kurrambong. Now there is, because there's a harmony centre, so it's teeming with love, it's teeming with social life. But it was quite a miraculous thing for Ajna, who's from Iowa in America.
So I did go a little ways though.
Yeah, right. But I wrote the list. So what that was actually was a combination of the astral and the soul. Because what I was doing was I was putting in my astral field, it's so fantastic that I've attracted this divine romance into my life. It's so amazing that my partner is blah, 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 and on and on. And then the reason that could manifest is because it was in the soul's will. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that in a moment. Or maybe I'll do it now. But to manifest anything, you've got to get it from up here, so in the divine void, just quickly, so that I can share this concept. In the divine void, everything is a possibility. So there's nothing that doesn't exist in the divine void, because the divine void is nothing and it's everything. And it's God by all names, all in the divine void as a oneness. And so the divine void for me is in every cell of life and every atom of life. And, they haven't worked out what the space is between the nucleus of an atom and the other things that are in atoms.
Electrons.
Thank you. The electrons of the atom.
Super.
Yes. And so for me, it's likely that the divine void is in that. So everything is possible in the divine void. And so why can't we have what we want? Well, why we can't have it is because the divine void is up here, and what we want has to get through all of these things to get into our physical life. Does that make sense? So with manifesting Arjuna in my life, it was already in the divine void because everything's in the divine void. And then our souls had to want for that to happen. Our souls had to want for that meeting to occur in order for it to have taken place. And then the astral field, if I was thinking, I'm locked in a convent and I don't deserve a boyfriend who has all of these qualities, then he would never have rocked up in my backyard, It just would never have happened. Or if he had have, I would have spent the whole time going, oh, isn't he nice? I'm not worthy. And so even if he had have showed me affection, it would have just bounced out, And so, the relationship would not have manifested. And then, in the etheric has to be big enough to hold the thought forms of how wonderful this relationship is as well. And then it comes into the physical. And for that, you do have to be in the same country, which you took care of. So that's kind of how all of that comes to be. So that's another reason why it's good to clean up all of this from all of your past relationships. Because if you've got baggage from past relationships, the divine is very compassionate. And so if you've got a wound in your life that says, I don't want to be in love because love is painful, and that's such a common one, Hollywood is full of that thought form, just shockers. And so that sits in your astral field saying, love is painful, I don't want a relationship. And the divine goes, oh, well, we love you. I love you, beloved. And therefore, I'm not going to do something that you don't want and that you're pushing away. And so even if it starts to come down here, it'll hit the astral field and it'll go, they don't want this. And it'll go patoing and shoot itself out of your existence. Does that make sense? And that can happen even in subtle things like different states of being within a relationship. So if you're in a relationship and you're thinking, it is never the case that we are in harmony in this relationship, then the harmony exists. The harmony exists up here, and it exists in the soul realm. But if it hits this and says harmony never exists, it will distort, and it will fractal off into non-harmony, or it will bounce out, and other vibrations that are not harmony will get through. And then in the physical manifestation, the harmony won't make it. It's like, but it missed, that sort of thing. It tried, but you blocked it, you know what I mean? And so it's another good reason just to keep the astral field as pure as possible, so that the will of the soul and the divine void can give you what is in your divine inheritance to receive in this lifetime. That's a bit tricky, really. That went a bit bigger than I expected it to with just the astral field. But there you go. But you understand what I mean, yeah? Yeah. Did you want to say something about any of that?
That's good.
That's good. Excellent. That's what we like to hear. So we have a very empowered relationship. Very good. Sorry? Yes, dear. Exactly. No. He does frequently express his opinion. We like that. Yeah. So it can be in people's karmic destiny to just fall into being like that, and you just need to get out of your own way. So can you, in hearing about this, can you see patterns in your lives that reflect that? And you've all got a relationship. If you didn't have a relationship before we talked about this, do you now have a relationship that you can think of? You all had relationships at the beginning, didn't you? Okay. So we'll do a bit of a meditation now to just get rid of some old thought forms. So just if you'd like to just close your eyes, we'll have a bit of singing as well to clear out the old. Okay, so a really great mudra for experiencing energy healing and meditation is to just sit with the palms facing upward on your lap. Just being aware of the divine, however you perceive the divine. Thank you, Peter. Being aware of your heart chakra. Good. Being aware of your crown chakra. Sending love to the face of the divine that you love the most, that you feel the most connection with. And inviting that being to help you in this process. Sometimes we forget that we're not just the bottom of the V diagram, but we're the top of the V diagram as well. Sometimes we forget that part of my me-ness is that I'm one with the divine. And I try and do things, I try and get traction and push heavy weights in my life with just the tip. And I can't get any momentum. And then I realize that I'm not just the tip of my V diagram. I'm also the divine void, I'm also my soul. And the divine void is everything, and so how could I ever not have the strength? Becoming aware of your strength, your connection to the divine. Inviting that into your heart, into your life. Very good. So we call on the Supreme God, Divine Father and Mother, God Goddess. We call on our souls and divine selves, and on all of our guides, teachers and friends in the spiritual hierarchy who love us unconditionally. We call on Shakti Durga, the Guru of Shanti Mission, and we call on all Guru, for all Guru are one. We call on Sai Baba, on Lord Jesus and Lord Buddha. We call on the Dalai Lama. We call on Archangels Michael, Raphael, Uriel and Gabriel, on north, south, east and west, on fire, earth, air, water and ether. We call for the grace of unconditional love to help soften our relationships, softening our hearts, the potential that exists in every relationship to be harmonious, to be lifted into grace. We thank you all for being with us, for sharing divine healing, light and love, guidance, protection, and divine intervention. Through the grace of God, so be it. So if you agree, say so be it. Very good. So just sending love upwards, being aware of your antakarana, which is the column of light that connects you to God above and God below. Being aware of your heart chakra. Sending love into your own heart chakra. And honoring your heart chakra for all that it has experienced in this lifetime. All of the many relationships, whether romantic or otherwise. Just giving it permission to release any pain that's no longer useful. Often our chakras have a desire to serve us. And in serving us, part of serving us is to protect us from pain. Which is quite logical. And yet sometimes pain is only in one particular instance and is not something that can be generalized to the next instance. And so in trying to protect us from pain, if the heart chakra closes off from love, it can protect us from love. It can hold love away from us. It can hold happiness and joy, which are heart chakra constructs, away from us. So just gently, lovingly apologizing to your heart chakra for any time you've been too scared to let love and joy in. For any time you've pushed it away, consciously or unconsciously. Just say, to my beloved heart chakra, I'm so sorry.
I'm so sorry.
For any time I've prevented you.
For any time I've prevented you.
Consciously or unconsciously.
Consciously or unconsciously.
From feeling love.
From feeling love.
Joy.
Joy.
And harmony.
And harmony.
Please forgive me.
Please forgive me.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the heart chakra. Good. So there's already a lot of different energy from different chakras, not just the heart chakra, starting to move. Because in the etheric body there are meridians of energy connecting the different chakras. And so when one chakra starts to release, sometimes it can just pop the other chakras open. So just sending love and gratitude to yourself for allowing this. Just say, I'm now ready to release.
I'm now ready to release.
All old files.
All old files.
That I've stored in the filing cabinet of my chakras.
That I've stored in the filing cabinet of my chakras.
That hold me back from the current reality.
That hold me back from the current reality.
I release this now.
I release this now.
I release everything that's out of date.
I release everything that's out of date.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the front of the body. Very good. Lots coming out. Fantastic work. Shakti Durga makes a brilliant metaphor about our thoughts in the astral field being like Tupperware boxes. And so when we think a thought, we put it in a Tupperware box and then we store it away in our chakras. And you know what happens when you store things in Tupperware boxes and put them in the fridge? And then you come back to them 3 years later. Because for some of us, there's thought forms about relationships that are that old, and I'm sure older. And when you come back to, say, some nice fried fish, 5 or 6 years later, what's that going to be like? Oh, not very nice. But it may have been delicious at the time. So, just releasing all old Tupperware boxes of old thoughts, old emotion, old energy that just doesn't serve you. Just breathing in through the crown and releasing, particularly through the back of the body. For some of us, it feels like we are judging ourselves quite harshly for our old behaviours in relationships, for the way we may have treated partners in the past that wasn't respectful, that wasn't love. And it feels like some of us are holding back from entering into love again, or from entering into vulnerability, even if you are in a relationship, because you don't want to hurt that person. So just say, I'm now ready to forgive myself.
I'm now ready to forgive myself
for everything that I've ever done.
for everything that I've ever done
That has not been respectful of myself or another.
has not been respectful of myself or another.
I forgive myself now.
I forgive myself now.
I forgive me, I forgive me.
I forgive me, I forgive me.
And in doing so,
And in doing so,
I release this old Tupperware box.
I release this old Tupperware box.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the heart chakra. So that's in the center of the chest. And Ajna and I are just going to help pull that out of your heart chakra. Excellent. Very good. A friend of mine says that holding a grudge is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Breathing in and releasing through the heart chakra, just forgiving. Just sending love in a general way to your past partners or to past people in relationships that have hurt you, even if that's a parental relationship or a friendship. Sending love to people who have hurt you or betrayed you in the past. Allow the love to honour their soul for keeping the contract they had with you. How nice of them! Sending love. And say, beloved one,
Beloved one,
I honour your divinity.
I honour your divinity.
I honour that you are a soul.
I honour that you are a soul.
A soul that loves my soul
A soul that loves my soul.
enough to hurt me
Enough to hurt me.
so that I would grow.
So that I grow.
And I forgive you.
And I forgive you.
I forgive you, I forgive you, I forgive you.
I forgive you and I forgive you.
For through all time and space.
Through all time and space.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown chakra and releasing through the heart chakra. Good work. There's a lot of movement in that area. Sometimes it's quite natural for releases in the heart area to cause tears because the tear ducts are controlled and governed by the heart chakra. So sometimes if the heart chakra opens, the natural response is just for tears to start flooding down the cheeks, and that's okay. There's lots of tissues. Just breathing in and releasing through the heart chakra. So I humbly ask to be forgiven
I humbly ask to be forgiven
by anyone I've ever hurt,
by anyone I've ever hurt,
particularly in relationship.
particularly in relationship.
Please forgive me.
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 Say, as we forgive each other,
As we forgive each other,
we set each other free,
we set each other free.
and we set ourselves free
And set ourselves free
to experience deep love
to experience deep love
for ourselves and others.
for ourselves and others.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown, and releasing through the front and back heart chakra. Good. Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the crown chakra. Good. And just say, I'm ready to release
I'm ready to release
all sorrow
all sorrow
from my relationship with the divine.
from my relationship with the divine.
I release this now
I release this now
through all time and space.
through all time and space.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing into the crown chakra on the top of the head and releasing upward. Great. So just say, I humbly ask forgiveness
I humbly ask forgiveness
from beloved Lord God
from the beloved Lord God
for times when I've blamed the divine,
for times that I made the divine,
for feeling abandoned,
Feel the healing hand.
I choose to understand
I choose to understand.
that this was simply my own self-love,
This was simply my own self-love.
or lack of it.
Or lack of it.
I choose to let love in from God,
I choose to let love in from God,
so that I know I'm lovable.
so that I know I'm lovable.
And I ask that this love from God
And I ask this love from God
pervade all of my relationships
to pervade all of my relationships
with unconditionality.
with unconditionality.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown and releasing upward through the crown chakra. Good. Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the back of the neck. Good. So the back of the neck area of the body is where the reptilian brain lives. And so that's where we hold a lot of old patterns. Just breathing in through the back of the neck. Imagining a whitish, silvery light coming in through the back of the neck and washing your spine. Setting you free of old patterns. Releasing through the back of the heart chakra. Good. Just say, I set myself free from the past.
I set myself free from the past.
I no longer have to be a prisoner.
I no longer have to be a prisoner.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown chakra and releasing through the heart. Just go, ah. Excellent. Very good. Sending love up to the divine. Breathing in a milky white light. Breathing in down to the back heart. Ah. So I'm ready to dissolve and disintegrate
I'm ready to dissolve and disintegrate
all thought forms and beliefs
all thought forms and beliefs
that say that I deserve pain in relationships.
that serve as a pain in relationships.
This is bollocks.
This is false.
I release this now.
I release this now.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown chakra and releasing through the front and back of the heart chakra. Good work. That was excellent. Excellent. Just nod if you felt some energy moving there. Yeah. So it's a ridiculous notion, really. Like, where do we get that from? Who knows? And yet it's there. That I deserve pain in relationships. Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the back of the neck. Excellent. Good. So we're going to sing to Lord Ganesha, who's from the Hindu pantheon. He's the elephant-headed god. He's quite famous. And Lord Ganesha is responsible for the removal of obstacles. He removes obstacles from life. So I would like you now that we've done some healing on ourselves, to just think of the relationship that you wanted to work on, and to send Ganesha, to send the energy of Ganesha into the relationship, asking that the V diagram that the two of you in the relationship form with all of your astral Maya, the illusion that we have in the astral field. Because can you see how it is an illusion in the astral field? When we build Maya, we believe it, whether it's the truth or not. Like with my story of being left for another woman, you know? It was just not the truth at all. And yet in my head, it seemed very real. It seemed very real, you know? And it was just because I'd built up that thought form, but it was actually an illusion. So we asked Lord Ganesha to dispel the illusions in the relationship that are causing us to seek distance from each other rather than to seek more warmth, to seek more vulnerability, more love, more unity. The souls in the V diagram of a relationship are looking for unity. They're looking to merge with each other. And that's part of how come Arjuna arrived from overseas. He had this spontaneous urge to leave America where he, was doing a university degree. There were various other things going on, but he had an urge to leave America and come to Australia because this is where his soul family is. So it's not just me, but also his guru Shakti Durga and many other of his soul friends and family that are here. And the love was so strong, the soul wishes to seek unity, and so he wanted to be near them. And then sometimes the ego comes along, and our personalities and our physical beings, and in the physical we seem so separate from each other. And so there's struggles in how to be unified. And sometimes we try and be unified with our partner or in a relationship, and we get rejected, and that prevents us from seeking that again. All sorts of things can happen. So just send Ganesha in to get a whole lot of it. You ready? Very good. Do you want to start with you? Being of Ganesha on the crown chakra, dancing. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Jai Ganesha. See him whirling away the problems as he spins his arms and legs, spinning in the air. Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Ganesha, Jai Jai Ganesha. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Your turn. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye Namah. Om Gam Ganapataye loving looking Ganesha, very soft looking, with a Buddha belly in the heart chakra, kind of like a baby Ganesha. Exquisite softness, exquisite gentleness and purity. And feel him sending exquisite love into the heart chakra. And noticing how your heart responds to this. How lovely to feel loved by God. To feel loved, full stop. And just watching as the white oceans of love come from Ganesha's hands and feet into the heart chakra. Watch as they just take out any rubble. So just going on a journey with Ganesha, starting at the heart chakra. Just through the last week with the beloved, and that's the name that we're giving to the person who you'd like to heal your relationship with today. Just taking your awareness back to the last conflict you had with that person, or to an issue that it keeps coming up. Give Ganesha permission to help with this. Let him flood his healing light into this issue and let it disperse. So, beloved Ganesha, I'm ready to release all thought forms that are binding me to this situation. I'm ready to be released. Thank you. So be it. Breathing in that electric violet light that we learned about, in through the crown chakra, out through the back of the head. Very good. So just allowing the energy of the group. So the group can pull in quite a bigger energy often than the individual can. Particularly when there's trained energy workers facilitating. You can kind of piggyback on their energy as they piggyback on the energy of their guru. So as all guru are one, what ends up happening is that the divine itself helps. As I become one with my guru and she becomes one with her guru and so forth until you get back to God. So just allowing that to happen, allowing us to help you. Realizing that you are one with this too, so allowing that part of you to help you. It's very empowering when we realize that I can help me through my unity with all. I am that I am and I can help me. Just breathing in from way up above the head, feeling a flood of energy coming down into the situation and dispersing the thought forms. Say, I now choose to seek and destroy through my body, mind and energy field. All of the thought forms, the fears, the beliefs about myself and this relationship that are holding me in this blockage, holding us in this discomfort. I release this now. From myself and from the etheric body of the relationship. So be it. Breathing in through the crown, just releasing all over, particularly out of the back of the body. Good. So try and see it like a physical thing, like a physical blockage being released. Imagine that you are looking into the eyes of the person that is the beloved for today. And that between you and them, you might see some blockages. You might see some things that are holding you back from the unity that your souls want. Whether it's fear, or insecurity, or anything, whatever it is, just sending love to yourself. Being aware of your solar plexus between the bottom two ribs, and just dissolve and disintegrate. All fear of becoming lost in this relationship. I dissolve and disintegrate
dissolve and disintegrate
all fear of unity,
all fear of unity,
all fear of losing my selfness,
all fear of losing myself,
my individualness,
my individualness,
and all fear of getting hurt in unity.
and all fear of getting hurt in unity.
I release this now
I release this now
from my solar plexus chakra.
from my solar plexus chakra.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown and releasing through the solar plexus. Good. So a lot of people probably feel a weight lifting there. So it might be one that we need to do a few times. So just sending love up to Ganesha, feeling him coming down into the solar plexus area between the bottom two ribs and dancing, radiating light. Om Gam Gam Ganapate. Om Gam Gam Ganapate. Breathing in and releasing through the solar plexus. Good. So the solar plexus houses the ego, and the ego often has fears of kind of being beamed up in unity and just being eradicated. But the thing is that even when we go into complete unity, like disciples seek to with Guru, what happens is that we become one, as in we realize that we're all one with God. We realize our godness in ourselves and in each other. And the respect for each other grows. But it doesn't take away our difference. It doesn't take away our individual personality, because we each have a different way of expressing God. So that's where the divine realm and the soul are different from each other. For the divine realm is indistinguishable, but in the soul, we start to have a different flavor of divinity in each one of us. A different way of expressing the divine. And that's beautiful. It's the way it was designed. Sending love to that part of yourself. What happens when we realize that we're one, particularly with our partner or with the beloved, through the unity with God, is that we realize that they're God too. And even though they might be different from us, they're still God. And we can start to respect that that's divine too. It's just a little bit different from how I'm divine. Just breathing in and releasing through the heart chakra and the throat chakra. Just say, I'm ready to dissolve and disintegrate
I'm ready to dissolve and disintegrate
from this relationship.
from this relationship.
All paradigm
All paradigm
that says that when someone is right,
that says that when someone is right,
someone else has to be wrong.
someone else has to be wrong.
I release all attachment
I release all attachment
to me being right
to me being right
and the other person being wrong.
and the other person being wrong.
And I release all of the frustration
I release all of the frustration
that I've spent in making this person
that I've spent in making this person
be me
be me
when they're their own person.
when they're their own person.
I release this frustration now.
I release this frustration now.
So be it.
So be it.
Breathing in through the crown chakra and releasing through the solar plexus chakra. Very good. Breathing in and releasing again for the front and back of the solar plexus chakra. Good. So I now choose
I now choose
to dissolve and disintegrate
to dissolve and disintegrate
all harsh words I've ever spoken to you,
all harsh words I've spoken to you,
all harsh thoughts I've ever thought about you
all harsh thoughts I've ever thought about you,
that has pushed you away
that has pushed you away
and hindered us from being one.
and hindered us from being one.
So be it.
So be it.
Just breathing in and dissolving and disintegrating those things. Again, seeing them being erased. Erased. And at the same time, asking in your heart for forgiveness of these things. Being in your heart and remembering a time when you and the beloved were really happy. And if there's never been a time, think of a time when you were really happy. When you had loads of fun together. when you delighted in each other, when beholding that person made your heart sing. Just remembering that time, feeding the memory into your heart chakra, not as a feeling of loss, but as a feeling of joy, for time does not exist in the astral and the etheric. And so that is still in the relationship. We just need to grow it. Feeding that into the heart chakra. Very good, beautiful. Seeing those heart chakras expand. Feeling the love expanding, and now sending that love to the beloved. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 So as Vidya sings, he's singing Om Mani Padme Hum. It's opening the heart chakra to reveal the lotus in the heart. An exquisite sentiment for a relationship. Sending love to the beloved and inviting the vulnerability of this. Very good. Just sending love and sending an invitation to them. Beloved, I wish to fall deeper into love with you, however that looks. For there is such scope for love both in and out of romantic relationships. There are times in life when one has to assert a boundary. It is not okay to be in a relationship and be physically assaulted or even emotionally abused. But it's okay to love that person. And so whilst we don't stay in that compromising situation, we say, I love you, and this is not appropriate. I'm leaving this relationship. This relationship cannot stay in its current form, and yet I love you, and I love your soul, and I know that we are both divine beings. And thus we can still send love to people and not be in a relationship with them. We can still fall into more love with people without being in love with them. Just trying that, sending love. Unconditional love is quite a liberating thing. Even in romantic relationships, it's good to love unconditionally. Because when we love with fear of whether or not we're going to be loved back, it becomes tainted. And we can easily slide into manipulation. Sending love to the beloved. Seeing the love that you're gathering in the heart, flowing to them. And now sending love to a guru figure in your life, whether that's Mother Mary, Lord Jesus, Lord Buddha, Shakti Durga, Baba Muktananda, Guru Mai, Sai Baba, whoever it is, these beings have great capacity for unconditional love. It is beyond what we can conceive of. Sending love to that being, feeling them embracing you, being all around you, like they're cuddling you from behind with their energy field. Feeling the surrender, the love, the security and the safety that brings you. Like being in a warm bath. Allowing their energy of love to enrich the love that you already have for this person. No matter what conflicts we have, at some level we still love them. It's part of the nature of the soul. And certainly it's the nature of the divine void. So allowing yourself to be exquisitely loved by the divine, and allow that to boost your capacity to love the unlovable, or the very lovable. Whatever you behold in the beloved, allow yourself to love more than ever before, with the help of this master. Just feeling the master put their hand on the back of your heart chakra. And I'd just like you to meditate on that for a moment, on expanding the love between you and the beloved. Allow it to flow into the throat chakra of your relationship with the beloved. Say, I now ask, as a conscious act of will, that my communication with this person be sweet and nurturing, respectful, loving, that it honor their divinity, and that even when there is a conflict, I can be graceful and honoring of this person, whilst asserting my boundaries. Alleluia.
Alleluia.
Breathing in and holding in the throat chakra. And as this energy comes in, allowing the old energy to be released through the out breath, the energy of harsh talk between you, harsh communication, harsh expression. Breathing in and releasing. And as you do so, just forgiving on your way, on its way out, just forgive it. Forgive it, forgive it, forgive it, and cut. And even what your throat chakra has received from the other person as far as harsh communication on their part, just let it go, forgive. And allowing the master to bless your throat chakra with skillful communication. Very cool. So looking into the eyes of the beloved again, you may notice that there is more eye to behold. There's more clarity between you and the beloved. There's more love. More is being said between you. Just say, I ask that you be blessed.
I ask that you be blessed.
Richly and deeply.
Richly and deeply.
I ask that your path be one of joy.
I ask that your path be one of joy.
So be it.
So be it.
And just imagine you can bless them. So just raising your hands with palms facing outward. And allowing the master that you called upon earlier to help flood you with energy. Allow this to come out your hands. You don't have to give any of your own energy. And in fact, it's better not to, in case you take any energy on from them. But just allow the master to bless through your hands, that they be uplifted and fulfilled in this incarnation. Very good. Stabilize. So just cut. So just open your eyes for a moment. Just do this. Cut. And that's just so that your etheric fields don't merge, like we talked about earlier. And then just raising the hands again and imagining the relationship, the actual relationship as a ball in front of you, a ball of energy. And asking this master to flood love into the ball of energy, softness and sweetness, kindness, gentleness. It's possible to have a conflict from the vibration and at the vibration of kindness. And when you can do that, the relationship has such a lot of respect in it, such a lot of love. The conflict is instantaneous. It's just a couple of seconds or 15 minutes. And then when it's resolved with skillfulness and grace, then you can go back into the honeymoon phase. In fact, into a deeper honeymoon phase than the original was before the conflict. Because you know more about the other person now from having dealt with them in a conflict situation. You're more close to them. You've expressed vulnerability. They've expressed vulnerability. What more is there to do but to love them deeper and deeper? If you have any special blessings for your relationship, intend them now. I ask that this relationship be blessed with abundance, with grace. Positive adjectives, please. Understanding is a really amazing one. To be able to understand each other's point of view. Compassion. Joy. Enthusiasm, sparkle, laughter, whatever you feel. Just stabilizing, and again, just cut. When we cut free from something that isn't another person, what it's doing is it's giving it permission to go forth into the world and create. Okay, so just putting your hand in the prayer mudra on the heart. In your mind, just thanking the soul of the person that we've achieved this with today. And then letting them know that they're free to return to their own being. And we give thanks as well to all of the divine masters and teachers who assisted us today. We give thanks to all Guru, to Jesus, Buddha, Mother Mary, to the great masters of compassion and love that assisted us to shift this relationship. And we ask for continued blessings upon all of these relationships and upon our relating style, that we be skillful and graceful in all of our relationships, and that through this we attract amazing love into our lives in many avenues. We ask this in full faith through the grace of the divine. So be it. Excellent. Just wriggling your fingers and toes. And when you're ready, opening your eyes. Namaste. So did anybody feel a shift when you were doing that? Yeah? Does anyone feel lighter in, like, if you just don't even think of the other person, does anyone just feel like, feel a bit more buoyant than I did before? Does anyone feel that? Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because we can have a conflicting situation in a relationship and go through the day not thinking about them, but feeling heavier because it's there, because part of our etheric being is feeding that. Does that make sense? So it's good to just do this regularly. In my life, most of my relationships are pretty smooth. It's tricky now, after this training that I've had in this, and many more things that you learn in Empowering Relationships 1 and 2. It's difficult for me to find a relationship where there's, something that I'm really upset about going on. But it's still easy for me to find a relationship where, there's little grains of sand between me and them, Where has anyone had that where you love a person a lot, but there's just this one thing that really bugs you, and it makes you feel like you want to get away from them rather than go towards? And even in those situations, it's great to just find the grain of sand and get rid of the grain of sand and fill it with love instead, go deeper, even when it's just a small thing, because then your energy is free to live its own life. And the energy of the relationship can soar to new heights. So you keep the relationship in more and more deeper and deeper honeymoon phase. You can use each grain of conflict as a stepping stone to send you into bliss further. Does that make sense? So I guess if you are in an ocean and you're quite deep in the ocean and you're trying to go to the surface, if you swim and you paddle, you can only get so much traction by yourself, and then you'll hit a rock, And so hitting a rock, it could either hurt your head or you could kick off from the rock and go up much faster. Does that make sense? And so with conflict in relationships, you can either bang your head on it and continue to relive it in your mind for days and days and days, and weeks and weeks and weeks, and years and years and years, and make it worse and pour your energy body down into it. It can weigh you down, a rock, down deeper into the darkness, or you can kick off from it into the light. And that's what we were doing there, flooding that situation with love. And so you get to experience more grace from having handled the conflict with love than you do for not having a conflict. So it's better to have the courage to go there rather than being conflict averse, because remember that your chakras are talking to each other, even if your mouths aren't. So are there any questions or comments to finish with? No? Feel a bit sleepy? Big weekend of fun. I think what would be a good idea, even just before, even if you're off to Jamie Tarr next or anything like that, just everybody stand up
It's finished.
and have a big wriggle.
That wasn't very good. We just have a wriggle. When there's lots of divine energy, it can get stuck in our bodies. So if you wriggle, it just helps. Wriggle, 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 wriggle. Excellent. Very good. Does that feel better? Yeah, we turned off. Hello. Uh-oh, that's not good. Nobody tell anybody. So if anyone does have any questions, feel free to come and talk to Aja and I. We'll be here for a couple of minutes. And otherwise, I hope you've had a fantastic Bodhi Festival. Yeah. I've had a really lovely